George, please. Oh, I'm sorry. They've already left on their bicycles, said the voice, and the house is empty except for me. I'm a neighbour come in to lock everything up. I'm so sorry I can't get George for you. Oh, thank you. Never mind, said Aunt Fanny, and put back the receiver. She gave a heavy sigh. Now what was to be done? Professor Hayling and his son were on their way to Kirin Cottage, and so were the 5, and none of them could be stopped. What a household it would be! Quentin, she said, going into the study, where her husband was tidying up enormous piles of papers. Quentin, listen. George and all the others are on their way here, and how I am going to put everyone up, I don't know. It looks as if somebody will have to sleep in Timmy's kennel, and I've a good mind to make a bed up for you in the coal house. I'm busy, said Uncle Quentin, hardly listening. I've all these papers to get in order before Professor Hayling comes, and, by the way, my dear, will you please tell the children to be quiet while the Professor is here? He's rather short-tempered and— Quentin, I'm beginning to feel rather short-tempered too, said Aunt Fanny. And if— She stopped very suddenly and gazed through the study window in horror. Then she pointed her finger at it. Look! What's that at the window? Her husband turned and stared in amazement. It looks like a monkey, he said. Where on earth did it come from? A voice called down the stairs. It was Joanna. There's a car at the door. I think it's your visitors. A man and a boy. Aunt Fanny was still staring in astonishment at the monkey, who was now scratching at the window pane, chattering in a funny little prattle. He pressed his nose to the glass, just like a child. Don't tell me that your friend owns a monkey and has brought him to stay too, groaned poor Aunt Fanny. She jumped as a loud bang came from the front door and went to open it. Yes, there stood Professor Hayling, the man who had so often forgotten to come in for meals when he had stayed at Kirin Cottage years before. And by him was a boy of about 9, with a face a little like that of the monkey now on his shoulder. The Professor strode in, calling to the taxi driver behind. Bring the luggage in, please. Hello, Mrs. Kirin. Nice to see you again. Where's your husband? My word, I've some interesting news to tell him. Ah, Quentin, there you are. Got your papers all ready for me? My dear old friend, said Uncle Quentin, shaking hands warmly. Fine to see you. So glad you could come. This is Tinker, my son, said Professor Hayling, clapping the boy on the back and almost knocking him over. I always forget what his real name is. We call him Tinker because he's always tinkering with cars. Mad on them, you know. Shake hands, Tinker. Where's Mischief? Poor Aunt Fanny hadn't been able to get in a word. The Professor was now in the hall, still talking. The monkey leapt off the boy's shoulder and was on the hall stand, swinging on a hat peg. Really, it's like a circus, thought poor Aunt Fanny. And the room's not prepared yet. And what about lunch? Oh, my goodness. And all the cousins coming as well. What is that monkey doing now? Making faces at himself in the hall mirror. Somehow or other, the visitors were pushed into the living room and they sat down. Uncle Quentin was so anxious to discuss some mighty problems with the Professor that he actually fetched a great sheaf of papers and immediately spread them over the table. Not in here, dear. In your study, please, said Aunt Fanny firmly. Joanna, will you help me take the bags up to the guest room, and we can make up a bed there on the couch for the little boy. There won't be room anywhere else. What about the monkey? Asked Joanna, eyeing it warily. Is he to have a bed too? He sleeps with me, said Tinker, in an astonishingly loud voice, and suddenly leapt up the stairs, making a most extraordinary purring noise as he went. Mrs. Kirin stared after him in amazement. Is he in pain or something? She said. No, he's just being a car, said his father. I told you he was mad about cars. He can't help pretending to be one now and again. I'm a car! A Jaguar car! Yelled Tinker from the top of the stairs. Can't you hear my engine?